And somehow I got chosen in the top 10 and I had to perform, and I was throwing a fit. My dad was like, Lily, you have to take this opportunity. And I was adamant that I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to get in front of all these people and sing. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm still such a young artist. Everyone here is older than me. I think like a lot of imposter syndrome at the time.
What's good, lovely people? Welcome to another episode of Den Devine Sessions. This is recorded live from Den Devine, a music venue right here in Broadbeach, Gold Coast, Australia. I'm your host, Joseph Brown, a musician, a creator, and a passionate advocate for all things music. With years of experience on the stage and behind the scenes, I'm here to bring you stories from the heart of the music industry. Whether you're an upcoming musician, a seasoned pro, or dedicated music fan, this podcast is for you. Let's get into the episode.
It's Den Devine time.
Den Devine.
Den Devine.
Den Devine time.
Presented by VMU.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Den Devine Sessions, where we talk music here on the Broadbeach Gold Coast in this awesome little venue called Den Devine. We invite different people in and we talk about the music industry. And today I have a very special guest with me. This is Lily Grace. How you going, Lily?
Hey, so good to be here.
Yeah, welcome. You're Gold Coast sort of based, aren't
I am.
you?
It was a 10-minute drive to get here today. It was perfect.
So earlier we were talking about that you sort of moved from Brisbane to the Gold Coast. Mm-hmm. How's that change been since you've sort of first came here? Like, as a musician, have you seen more and more venues open up, or has it been more embracing?
I feel like I've been kind of Gold Coast based my whole life. I moved here when I was about 5, which I think kind of means I'm Gold Coast born and bred in a way. But it's been so good to see the growth of the Gold Coast music scene over the last, especially 5 years. I feel like there's been so many people who are just rooting for Australian talent and local Gold Coast talent, creating opportunities, festivals, the growth of the Gold Coast Music Awards, and for there to be a really strong support system is a really great thing to see. For sure. And of course, what we would always do here, not sure who, someone's just walked in to the building, that's okay. Where we like to start things off is where the seed first went into your head, where you wanted to become a musician. So take me back to the beginning, take me back to your first influences where music just, took over your life. But let's go from just the seed at the beginning. Let's go from the start. Yeah. I started taking singing lessons when I was 10 years old. Yeah. And I was in this little thing called Glee Group, which is where all these girls get together and they sung Glee songs every I think it was like a Wednesday afternoon or something. And I begged my parents, I was like, Mum, I want individual singing lessons, and then about 6 months later I want guitar lessons too. And for my birthday she bought me like a year's worth of singing lessons with this singing teacher who I absolutely loved. And the singing teacher I was working with at the time played at cafes and everything around the Gold Coast, and I thought she was the coolest person ever. I was like, I want to be like that girl. I want to be playing in little cafes on the weekends. I want to get in pretty dresses and get to go and sing for people. And I knew I needed to buy an amplifier for that. So I got my first start at open mics and busking at the local markets, literally across the street. They have the Broadbeach markets there. I did that every Sunday. And I knew I needed $1,200 to buy an amplifier and a microphone, a Roland Street Cube.
Oh, that's famous.
Yeah. That's what I was after. And I spent about 7 weeks busking every Sunday, and I came up with the money to buy it. And then I started hitting up local venues all around the Goldie, into northern New South Wales and some in Brisbane. And I was like, hey, I'm Lily. I'm a local singer. I'd love to come and play a show. I got my start kind of in the covers scene and started playing, 2-3 times a week. And then from there, I went to my first Tamworth Country Music Festival when I was 12, and I was busking in the street, and it was the best time ever. I somehow got chosen to be part of, in Tamworth, there's a busking competition, and if you get chosen, you get to perform in front of like 5,000 people.
Wow.
And somehow I got chosen in the top 10, and I had to perform, and I was throwing a fit. My dad was like, Lily, you have to take this opportunity, and I was adamant that I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to get in front of all these people and sing. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm still such a young artist. Everyone here is older than me. I think like a lot of imposter syndrome at the time. But he was like, no, like you're taking this opportunity. And I'm so glad he pushed me, because once I got on stage in front of that, I feel like it was kind of a turning point for me when I realized it's something I really wanted to do. I went from kind of being like in the corner busking and, you know, in the corner of a bar or something, playing background music, to more having people actually being there to really hear the talent. On that trip, I met Troy Daly, Lee Kernigan, and just some amazing people in country music. And for me, that's kind of where I went. I really want to do this. I love the energy of being on stage, and I love just the community and camaraderie around the music scene.
Yeah.
So from there, honestly, I started writing songs, and I guess the rest of it kind of goes on. I wrote a lot of songs. I met James Blundell, and we got to put a song out together, which was my start in, you know, really the country music scene. And then venturing to Nashville and just pursuing the original thing now, which I'm absolutely loving doing.
Yeah. Wow. Such a like awesome story. And
Thanks.
did you ever like, you know, at the beginning, did you ever think this is where you would end up? Like, did you ever think, I mean, when you're a kid, so 10 years old, you have your first singing lesson.
For sure.
You obviously don't, when you're 10, you don't think years ahead, right? You're
No.
just sort of doing it. I think you should hold on to that for your whole life, you know? But did you ever have this ambition to like pursue this on the career level? Like, or was it just like, I just love singing?
Not initially at all. I just thought it was so much fun. I loved getting in front of people. I loved, you know, again, getting dressed up, singing songs. I just loved, you know, the whole process of doing that. But I think, honestly, like as I started putting out my own music, it became more of an ambition for me. And now it's something I'm so passionate about. And it's like every day, what can I do to push my career further? What can I set up for to, you know, get me doing the things I want to do? So absolutely now it is. But when I first started, I never would have thought I'd be in this
Just for the love of
position.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And did you have any influences like leading up to that, wanting the singing lessons? Did you see another busker, or was it like going to a concert, or was it just that you were just in your own, beating your own drum?
Honestly,
just
I
love
was 10
singing.
years old. I don't exactly remember, but I knew I grew up doing dancing and gymnastics.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of came hand in hand. I loved, you know, Taylor Swift, watching Katy Perry do her dance routines and
Yeah.
everything. So I think kind of just what I was consuming was girls doing that kind of thing. And I was like, I want to do that as well.
Yeah.
And as a 10-year-old, you know, doing that kind of stuff is awesome. So I just jumped into it.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I definitely big questions to try and remember
I know,
when you're 10 years old.
Let me scrape my brain for that one.
But sometimes, you know, I've spoken with people, sometimes they just knew such at a young age. Some people, it came later. Some people, you know, I remember when I was young, I just first got my guitar lessons, and I can remember those moments, you know. And it's
How young were you when you started?
I was probably about 7 when I got my first lessons.
Righto.
But music came when I was like 25 as a career, you know. So I'm 35 now, which I feel old. But
How it works out though, isn't it awesome?
yeah, like that's the reason why we're here, is to talk about the music industry. And I know in my journey, there's been a lot of like, you know, obstacles and everything. There's a lot of like compromises you got to make that I wished I didn't have to make. Just sort of things that you got to, you know, you got to sing these just crazy ass songs to just get paid in the music industry. And it's like, you know, so that's why we're just having the conversation about this, you know what I
So
mean?
good to be here and do it.
Yeah, exactly right. So tell me about your journey since you've done your lessons. Now you've done your big busking, played in front of all these thousands of people. Now you're saying you're going to Nashville, or you've been to Nashville? You've been, or
I've been, yeah.
you've been?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Absolute dream. I feel like after that Tamworth trip, I told my friends, I'm going to go to Nashville one day. I'm going to write songs. I'm going to pursue my country music dream over there. And I actually got to do that, which was so special. And I think, honestly, like being in that city, it's the mecca for music. I'm not sure. Have you been to Nashville?
No.
Okay. Well, it's pretty much music essential for everything. There's writing sessions happening twice a day. There's this strip called Music Row, which is where all the writers kind of inhabit. And, you know, your Sony, your Big Loud, all the major publishing companies are along that strip. And you get to go in and kind of write in the same rooms that all these amazing songs are written in. And for me, I think it was just such a surreal experience, because it's something I've been looking up to doing for such a long time. And to actually be there and to get to soak it in and make the most of it is insanely cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I really found myself there. I found a group of people who they do treat music like a real career over there. As being a songwriter is a real career, being a guitarist is a real career, and there are so many avenues for you to do that in Music City, which I just think is such a cool thing, because sometimes that's not always how it's perceived.
Yeah. And so tell me about, you've done obviously Australia, you've done the Gold Coast. I'm sure you've probably done a few other gigs outside of Gold Coast, like Tamworth Country Music Festival, which is awesome. But then you've been to Nashville, which is like this capital. I would call it the capital of music industry.
Yeah.
Really, it's something that
True,
matters, you know.
Mhm.
So you've got these two A/B comparisons. Like how's the difference with the community and holding music between the Gold Coast and you singing Lily Grace songs, and Nashville and you singing Lily Grace songs? Like, tell me about.
I think it kind of depends on what kind of scene you're playing in. If you're playing the cover scene, there's a cover scene in Nashville and there's a cover scene in Australia. What's cool about Nashville, do you know what a writer's round is?
Writers Round?
Yeah.
I'm assuming. I don't know what it is.
It's okay.
No.
I'll give you a little definition for you.
educate.
It's they have like 3 or 4 writers in a row, and these people all play songs they wrote. You take it in turns. You'll sing 3 or 4 songs, and you sit there and tell the story and play the song. I think there's a real appreciation for the songwriting in Nashville, and there's rounds on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all through Sunday. There's music every single night, and people come to hear original music. There's a real appreciation for it in Nashville,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of looked down upon if you are playing covers in Music City too, because it's such a town that's built on songwriting and built on the craft of writing music. But saying that, there's such an appreciation for that in Australia too. There is an audience that really appreciates that. You see it like even at Groundwater the other weekend. They had like a songwriters round showcase, and there's all these people coming at 10 a.m. in the morning to hear the stories behind the songs. So I think there's definitely a market for it, but it's been more developed. And
Nashville's been around a very long time, so that makes sense that they would have a lot more tools accessible. There's a lot more, and obviously, of course, population.
Oh gosh, yeah. Crazy.
It's a different thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you got in the Gold Coast? Like 500,000. But you got Brisbane, and people come up from pretty far away, and I guess there's going to be always differences. But I guess one thing that would be good to understand is what the community does to support the music industry. And like you said, having these writers' rounds frequently. Like, do you find this on a regular basis here?
I don't know.
No?
I find there's a lot of different kinds of events here. Like there's your networking events, there's the music bingo, there's obviously like your Queensland Music Awards and stuff, but they're definitely less frequent to Nashville. I think that's also just the music population here. In Nashville, it's a town full of musicians and creatives. Obviously, there's more opportunity to do all that stuff. Like in Nashville, there's events every night which are, mingling and just meet each other kind of thing, which is great. That definitely happens here, but I think just honestly, because of the population scale, it isn't at the same standard that Nashville is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, of course, if you go to Nashville and then you go to another city that's not developed, it's going to, it'll be the same thing. But it'd be good if we can sort of bring these sort of concepts and make, why can't Gold Coast become a sort of Nashville, I think there's so much musicians here.
There's so much talent, like Southeast Queensland, even just as a whole, there's so much talent here coming through, people moving up from Melbourne too. It's such a growing scene. You just see like everything's happening. It's brilliant.
For sure. And tell me about your creative process. Like, how do you, when you write a song, like, do you get the emotion first and then the expression? You know what I mean? Like, do you go through an experience, then write, or are you able to write on hand?
Sometimes it depends on the song, I think, but you should see my notes app. It is a mess and a half. I've got a long list of all these song ideas, and sometimes if I'm really feeling something, I'll sit down then and there and write it, and that's a really authentic way of writing, because when you're feeling something, you feel it and you let it out. Got some of my best songs doing that, but I also kind of have, I guess, my structured form of writing, which is where I book in writing sessions. So when I'm in Nashville or when I'm back home, I write on Zoom a lot when I'm here. At like 4 a.m. because of time zones, but in Nashville have a scheduled writing session, and that's what I have those ideas banked for. When you're going to make a trip to somewhere like Nashville, obviously it's quite a big thing to do. You want to make sure you have good ideas ready to go before you get there. So for me, I'll have if I have a thought or a title, I'll write it down and add some notes below it of how I think the song would go. I'll add a voice memo of a melody idea and then bring that into the write. But I absolutely love co-writing, so I just think it's the coolest thing. Do you co-write much?
I write. Speaking of Chev Wilson, Chevy, I've got about 2 songs with him, but one we're just sort of wrapping up. So I love co-writing. I think collaboration is something that Australia doesn't do enough, personally.
Sure.
Because when you look at, I came from a hip hop background. I still love hip hop.
Great.
But even if you look at country, if you look at a lot of genres that are successful and people who are successful, this collaboration is always there, because there's no competition.
No.
When you compete, then I think that's when you almost like damage yourself, because you're like, why are you competing? Music is so subjective. It's not objective. It's
Gosh, yeah.
something that's your experience is you, my experience is me. It's like it's not a competition of who's had the saddest story or whatever. You know what I mean?
The weird thing is, like, music, I feel like it's always the song comes first in everything. So it's a silly thing to be competitive about because it's about who writes the best song, and you can't force that or anything. But I think collaboration, honestly, the best thing I ever did, because my songwriting ability went from here to here, in my opinion at least. And I think that's from getting in rooms with people who I know are a lot better than me at the craft, and just trying to soak it in and see what they do different, watch their process, and try to take that into my own writing. So to not do that, I think would just be, honestly a silly thing.
Well, and that's, I think, is something that does happen here, in my opinion. It's just opinion. Mm-hmm. But I think people are quite insecure. I don't know why. I just think that everyone's like sort of lone wolfing here. I don't mean everyone. I know I'm being really broad here. But I've just picked up a lot of people are quite insecure in themselves when it comes to, like, you want to collaborate. They're like, I don't want to collaborate. Or they might think, you might outshine them or... Sure. And I agree with you. Why? What's the point of that? Like, just show up as you are, and learn. And if someone's better than you, then that's cool. Like, learn from them, Absolutely. Chev's an amazing writer. Mm-hmm. And, he just pops out lyrics. Great. Yeah, an amazing performer. He's just been on the Rock the Boat thing. I know. So it's like... That's who you want to be around.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to... It's like, be around people that make you bring your A game,
Brilliant. I love... there's something I love more than being intimidated by a writer. And I feel like I went through this when I first got to Nashville. I was very lucky. My management was setting me up with some really cool songwriters over there who just have, written songs for George Strait or Keith Urban, which... is amazing that I get the opportunity to be in a room with them. But also there's that imposter syndrome thing. I'm like, well, I'm a 17-year-old kid. I'm coming in from Australia. How do I know anything? How am I going to carry myself in this right? But honestly, that's the best way to grow, is by putting yourself in circumstances where you're going to just, bite off more than you can chew and just keep chewing, because it's scary, but you just learn so much and you can really accelerate quickly if you're, doing scary things, which I love.
Exactly. Like, so the imposter syndrome's come up a couple times. I want to know, like, I know what imposter syndrome is. The average person should know. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what I believe imposter syndrome is like that, where you think, why am I here? Why have I been chosen to be this person, right? What tools did you give yourself to overcome these thoughts? Because I'm sure these thoughts have come. What did you do? Did you look in the mirror and go, you deserve this? Talk me through this.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's an industry where so many people work so hard and some of them never get a break. And it's a hard thing about that is I feel like I do work really hard for what I'm doing, but I know people who work harder than I do, who will, I was in high school at the time and I was still doing school, and I had friends who were, grinding 24/7 for their music. And I'm like, well, I'm still at school. How do I deserve this instead of someone else? No. And that's kind of a mental battle more than anything. It's just in your head. That's what's happening. If you work hard and opportunity comes, you're more than entitled to that. But for me, my dad was the biggest tool in that process. He has absolutely helped my confidence. And I think, honestly, music has been the whole journey for me. I used to be the shyest child. I could not hold a conversation with a wall. Like, I was terrible. But I think him pushing me, and whenever something comes, he's like, well, Lily, you did work hard. You worked just as hard as they did. Lily, you put in the hours. You want this. There's no reason you don't deserve this. And I think just confidence-wise, having someone like him coaching me through that has been monumental in so many ways. You've got to believe in yourself if you want anything to happen. And if you don't do that, you're just going to get pushed around. And I think overcoming that was definitely like the biggest journey, but also I'm so grateful that music was like in my life for that reason, or I'd be, in my little bubble still. So that's good stuff for people. That's because it's a big part of how, it's massive, your own confidence in yourself and just believing that you're worth that. It's such a really, it's a hard thing that I think a lot of musicians, they either overcompensate, that I've seen people who have imposter syndrome, they do overcompensating is just just be yourself, don't try and be the next person, right? Like Absolutely. What's the point of that? There's heaps of these people. So that's awesome, man. So that's some good tools to get out there. And when you're going to your gigs, tell me about your lead up to a gig. My lead up to a gig.
What happens?
Morning vocal warm-ups, of course. Yeah. Tick it off in the morning. But honestly, it used to be more of a challenge for me anxiety wise, and I'd be like, oh, I have to, prepare myself mentally before I get on stage. But now it's just kind of honestly collecting myself before I get onto the stage and, making sure I'm well prepared beforehand. If I want to put on a good set, it's about having confidence in that set, because you can't stand on stage with confidence if you haven't done your prep work. So for me, my goal when I'm rehearsing is to get to a point where anything could go wrong and I still know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then allow myself to be natural on stage, because I know that it's solid and what I've got is good to play, kind of thing. So my process is honestly just trying to make sure I've done the work beforehand so I can enjoy it when I get on stage, and you can be natural, you can engage, and you can create real moments. But apart from that, honestly, hair, makeup, and an outfit, and then I'm on stage.
You're ready to go.
Yep.
Sure,
you can relate to that one.
I still have my little pre gig rituals, you know.
Tell us about them.
Just little things, just like going up to the nature and,
Really? Okay.
just maybe having a swim or maybe a sauna session or whatever, just little things like this. It depends. Not every gig. Like if I'm just doing like a pub gig, I don't really care. But if it's like a more major festival or something where I've got to be holding that space for all of those people, music for me is like a responsibility. That's how I take it. I'm responsible with the message and the way I affect people's minds, bodies, and souls.
Absolutely.
And I think people underestimate the power of music. It's intimate. You're with someone, even though you're not there with them. You're in their mind, and when you tell them a message, that's you're responsible for that. People can go on afterwards. My wife's from Turkey, right? And she told me there's a story. There was a song that people were committing suicide. Really? And they had to cancel the song. I don't know how, I don't want to take it that serious, but she was like, there was one song that went around and it was getting in people's mind and making them, anyone who's going through suicide, please, there's help out there. But yeah, I don't like there's a power and there's a responsibility with that power as a musician. So for me, I'm always like, that's my pre-ritual, is to get into my mind space of holding that space for people.
Good on you.
With responsibility,
It's wonderful. I feel like people as well, they come to a show, whether they want to admit it or not, to be moved and to be touched emotionally. They might want to, have a fun time, or they might want to have a sad moment in a song. That's why they come to the show. I think, honestly, the biggest disservice you can do is getting on stage once they've paid hard-earned money to come and see you, not being prepared and not being in the right headspace to do that. So I think it is a real, responsibility, and I think it's great the way you go about it, understanding that.
Yeah, and so on this professional aspect, right, that's obviously one of the big pillars of our conversation, is what is professional? Like to you, when you hear professional, it has so much meanings to people. Some people say it's to be paid. Yeah. Some people say all different opinions on that. For you, what does a professional musician mean?
That's a deep question.
I know, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's understanding the responsibilities of your role and showing up and performing with that.
Perfect answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
and you keep going, but I love that, because that's exactly what it's about. Like, it's understanding your responsibilities. Like, you have a responsibility. If someone's, you take music away, right? Now let's go to a carpenter. Hey, Mr. Carpenter, I want to build a shed. Yeah. And he builds a toilet. Yeah. And you're like, what is this? I didn't ask for a toilet, I asked for a shed. What's going on, Yeah. So it's like that with a musician, It's like you've got a responsibility. At first, I think your client, like you said, covers, right? When you're in the cover industry, your client's the venue to play songs everyone loves. True. Then you become like yourself, an original artist. Your client's now the people who are buying tickets to your shows. Yeah. Now that client's changed,
the positioning of that.
The responsibilities change as well, right? But then that same responsibility of the venue has to still factor in. Absolutely. You still have to make that venue money, so people still have to spend money. If you have a non-alcoholic drinking audience and you know it, because you'd know your audience more than anyone else, then don't go to a venue that's relying on alcohol. Sure. Do a community hub, or do something that's like an art or a library, or that makes sense. Something that's not relying on alcohol, right? You spend the money in another way. Yeah. But yeah, I think you nailed it. That's a really great answer. But you were going to go somewhere deeper on that, because I heard you
I think as well, like understanding the impact some things have, and I think this has been a journey for me, because I've only kind of come into this original scene the last 3 years or so, and songs you write can really have an impact on people, and I think for me that was a bit of a barrier to get through. And little things, even like taking a photo with someone or giving them a guitar pick, can mean the world to some person who's been touched by that music. So I think it's just, again, you know, understanding that that is your position, and it kind of relates back to the imposter syndrome thing we were saying. Like, even if you don't think what you're doing is cool enough, I do believe what I'm doing is great, but understanding that some people it really is, and you taking the time to do a meet and greet after, you taking the time to do a radio interview. I think it's just having an understanding of this industry as well. A lot of people are in it for the love of it, but it's also having a respect for that. Like a radio interview at 4 a.m. in the morning, they're giving you an opportunity. You get up and do that. A manager who's fighting for an opportunity, never do the wrong thing by that manager because they're fighting for you. And just having a sense of grace with everything you do, you know, in the scene.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I had this, oh, that's right. Before we opened up, you mentioned selling pictures of them signing your face.
Wild.
How's that feel?
So weird.
Yeah?
So weird. I have we did a little campaign around my album launch, and we gave away like a free signed picture with anyone who bought one. And I'm selling these signed pictures of myself, and it felt crazy because I'm like, who would want a picture of me? I don't know, but I can't imagine the people who have massive posters, like big artists who have artist posters on the wall. That would be a new barrier to get through, I think, but we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, look, they got their album here.
Oh, yep, debut album.
Let's now we're on the album. Talk to me about this album. Like, what's the I can see here, recorded in Nashville, Tennessee, produced by Michael and Caleb Flanders.
You got it. I wrote this record. It's called Old Enough to Know Better, and I think it's kind of a little picture into my journey navigating everything for the first time. I started writing it when I was 16, finished it when I was 17 and a half or something. And it's kind of depicting my journey going to Nashville as a young individual, still in high school, and experiencing so many first things, experiencing my first time living at home, my first time navigating certain friendships, relationships, and first time going out, anything like that. And I think it's just honestly a very vulnerable display of my first time experiencing those things. It's kind of a very genuine portrayal of that because it's my first time. But it literally went #1 on the ARIA country charts, which is insane. So thank you. Five. I know, so cool. So it's doing good things, and I'm so glad to have it finally out.
Yeah, that's so. Congratulations!
Thank you.
Wow, that must be a big. My mum always said never ask the lady her age, so I'm not going to ask your age. But so 17.
Yeah.
You were when you finished.
I was, yeah. 18 now.
You're 18 now.
Yes.
So I didn't let me ask you.
You kind of got there.
yeah. I was like, wow, this is obviously a new album,
Yes,
so
it
it must be pretty recent.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Wow, that's your first off the rank?
My first ever album. I've been playing the singles game for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
But to finally have a project in music and have it on hard copy is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Massive as. And
thank you so much.
To record in Nashville, like what a big.
Oh, it was wonderful. We had I had the coolest experience, Joe. We got to do a live session, which is like where you have all your musicians come to one place in the studio, and they just bring the songs to life in the studio, and they just start playing it, and this magic is formed, and I'm leading the direction. I'm like, I don't like that, but I love what you're doing here, and in 25-30 minutes you really have a strong flesh of a song. Just the coolest thing ever. I had the great time with it.
Yeah, that would have been, what an experience. And all by the age of 18.
Yeah, so cool.
Wow.
So cool.
And you still got this whole life ahead of you, which is awesome.
So. Yeah, it's awesome.
That's great. Like, I mean, obviously, you got to live in the now, so don't think too far ahead. But it's great that some of the wisdom that you're dropping at such a, I'd say, I'm just an old man here. So I feel like I'm a bit old man saying old man things. No, but like to know these sort of things here at a younger age, it shows that you've got to be on your game when you're coming into this industry. You've got to be.
Thank you so much.
All of that, you've got to have the tenacity. You've got to have the support network, because it sounds like you've got a big, your dad behind you,
absolutely, who's guiding you and that sort of stuff, which is great because there's obviously a lot of sharks in the industry. So to have these sort of support bases behind you, which it's awesome as. And you've got grateful. You mentioned your management's in Nashville. So talk to me about this. How did you find them, or did they find you? When did the management come into play? Yeah, I put my first song out with James Blundell, which was this moonshot opportunity. When I was 15, I was opening for James Blundell and Tanya Kernigan, and unfortunately something came up and Tanya had to pull out. But I'd already met James at this point, and he called me up and he goes, "Hey Lily, like, unfortunately, Tanya had to pull out, but I was wondering, instead of opening the show, do you want to co-headline it with me? And I was like, oh, of course I would. Let me think about it for a second. Anyway, I obviously was co-headlining with him then, and I was the most annoying 15-year-old. I called this guy over and over again, and I was like, hey, James, like, can we write a song together? We could perform it together at the set. He was like, yeah, we'll make it happen. And I was like, no, it's going to happen. So, James, so when are you free to write this song? He eventually said yes, and we had a Sunday afternoon writing session. He was in his back shed, being the country guy he is. I was in my back bedroom on Zoom, and we wrote this song called Annie June. It was my debut single. But sorry, how this links to Nashville. I met my producer through James. He introduced me to my producer, Michael Flanders.
Yeah.
He's been in Nashville for about 17 years, but came back over COVID. So I got to meet him and his son Caleb there, who have now been producing every track I've done to date. They're brilliant. And they kind of started with that Nashville journey. I also met a guy named Chris Davison, who was part of the Davison Brothers, who headlined Groundwater.
Yeah.
And those are kind of my two first people in the States who helped get me over there. Chris threw me on his tour bus, and I got to go and travel with them, which was so cool. And Michael set up some rights and stuff for me. And then from there, honestly, like introduction to introduction, we found a team that really worked for me, and I'm absolutely loving them. They've just been the best. So.
And what was that pivotal moment? That moment that pivoted you from Lily Grace Gold Coast artist to Lily Grace Nashville artist? Like, what was that? Was it that tour? Was it that co-headline? Was that the opportunity that clicked everything into place? Honestly,
no. I've been dreaming of going to Nashville for a really long time. I think I was just looking for the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Since I went to Tamworth, I, came across a couple of documentaries about Nashville. I heard of this city where it all happens, and if you want to be someone in country music, you got to do something there. Obviously, that's not fully true because you see what's happening here in Australia now. There's definitely a framework to do it here.
Yeah, Casey Barnes is doing great stuff.
I
think he's going to Nashville though.
Yeah, he does go to Nashville.
Yeah,
but I think
well, that sort of goes against anyone else.
Anyway, point made. But we, I don't know. I think it's kind of a innocent perspective that I thought that was the only way to do it. But that's kind of what I thought when I was 12, 13 years old. If I want to make it happen, I have to get to Nashville. And obviously meeting a Nashville producer, I was like, oh my goodness, this means I get to go to Tennessee and go experience the city. And I just love it over there. It's one of my favorite places. But I think honestly growing up too, I'm having a realization and appreciation for the music scene here, which is great. And realizing there's such a cool scene here. There's such a cool group of people, and there's cool opportunities here as well to build things and be a part of the community, which I want to keep alive as well. For sure.
And talk to me through your streaming, using the streaming platforms, using all these sort of online platforms. Because I'm sure you wouldn't have been doing music back when you had to sling CDs out the back of a boot.
Got one of these now.
Oh, yeah. From not from the boot, but you're still doing it. Stuff, are you finding physical and digital? Like, how do you go with the physical copies in Australia? Like, do you sell a lot of CDs still?
I do, actually. It's been really, I think it's more people just supporting the artists, which is lovely. I kind of got my start in, I guess, around the James Blundell thing on social media. And that was me trying to grow my Facebook following, my Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, etc. And I was just posting to try and grow it on there and replying to every single comment. My goal was just to build a community online. So honestly, like a lot of my streaming stuff is feeded from my Facebook into that and everything. But honestly, people have been buying the physical CDs as more of a form of support, which is lovely. And I think music is free to access nowadays. No one has to pay to listen to it. But when they do, it's something that's really appreciated from an artist side. So thank you to everyone who's been doing that.
Yeah, it's cool that you do. Do you have a vinyl as well?
I don't have a vinyl. No? I wish.
That's on the...
I don't even have a vinyl player, but I think it's the coolest thing ever. So maybe.
Yeah,
if enough people DM me asking for one, we'll launch one.
Hey? Yeah. Vinyls, I mean, that's the thing. The physical products, they're memorabilia. Yeah. Digital world... internet goes down pretty frequently in Australia, and then that's it. The digital world's gone. I'm like, Spotify, my internet's out. CD. Yeah, it's like the amount of times my auxiliary cord doesn't work, but I still have a stack of CDs. I just, because literally things die all the time. So much bad reception areas. You can't listen to Spotify. That's it out. Or you've got, your phone dies.
Yeah.
So it's good people are still buying.
It's great.
Buying
It's great. I
CDs.
feel very grateful for everyone who is.
Did you get these done up in Nashville as well?
No, in Australia.
In Australia. So you've done all your production in Nashville.
And then released in Australia.
Released in Australia. And have you also done a partial release in Nashville?
Not really. Only digitally, which is on your streaming services and YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, cool. And was that advice from your management?
It's also just the logistics of doing it. Obviously, shipping to the US is very expensive.
Yeah.
And basing it out of there doesn't make too much sense to do so at the moment when I'm kind of doing all my touring and promotional efforts here in Australia. But it's something I definitely look at doing, later on.
For sure. Okay, now I want to go down a route of post-COVID, right? It feels like a lot of your these sort of album releases, everything's in the last few years.
Yeah.
Were you doing much music pre-COVID? Like, were you doing a lot of original stuff or covers or anything pre-COVID?
I was doing a bunch of cover gigs. I literally was doing cover gigs 2-3 times a weekend, but not too much the original thing. Honestly, I'd written a couple of songs, I'd say 10 or 15 before COVID. And during COVID, I just threw myself into songwriting. And I, at this point, obviously had a couple of opportunities coming up around the James Blundell thing and everything. Which was at the end of COVID, but my goal was just become a better songwriter. So I was trying to write a song a day was my mission. I think I wrote like 220 songs over that COVID period.
Wow.
So I knew my songwriting wasn't great, and I was watching like YouTube tutorials on how to write songs and listening to podcasts and reaching out to other people who I guess toured with or gigged with and be like, hey, did you write a song with me? And thank goodness of the people who said yes, because I wasn't very good back then. Very grateful for them, but I guess it was kind of my mission to just improve on that craft, and it's the best thing I did because it set me up really well for when COVID ended. There were opportunities to go overseas, and then obviously with the James Blundell thing, I had some of the chops to at least back it up a little bit. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, because I know from a lot of conversations I've had post-COVID, there's been a slump in a lot of venues. A lot of venues, I think there's about 1,000 venues closed down in the last 24 months, which is a lot of venues. And I just wanted to see, if it had any impact. So, I mean, obviously you spend a lot more time creating, but now you've been gigging.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was lucky in a way. I was 15, 16.
Yeah.
I was living at home, obviously, with my parents, and I still went to high school. I think I was in a very fortunate position compared to a lot of musicians who relied on that for their livelihood. I didn't need money for anything. I was being supported by my parents. So for me, it was a great opportunity for me to work on my craft and improve. So I guess it was positive in that perspective, but I know for a lot of people it was a terrible time and it was just a real struggle for them. So I really feel for them, and I think it'd be terrible to say it was a great thing because I know how much it was really affecting them.
But it was opportunity to create.
For me, yeah.
Which is great. And I think a lot of people... Yeah, because it was, the best things happen when you can't leave house, it's just use that we're musos.
Absolutely.
You can write and so much you can do, you know what I mean? So that's really good. And how have you found this journey in the last couple of years since COVID with gigging, with finding gigs, do you gig still that 3 to 4 week at the moment?
Not 3 to 4 a week. I'm a bit more selective now. I'm trying to be, which is cool. So more a bit out of town as well, which is cool. We're heading to Sydney really soon and Melbourne for some shows. But more honestly headline stuff or appearances and stuff. We did the Gold Coast show, the Mayoresses Ball, which is fun. But I'm really trying to lean into that band thing as well and really build my band sets with my crew I play with. They're always a really fun set. You get the crowd involved, and I think there's a better rate of conversion as well in, converting followers to supporters and everything, because you really get to deliver those songs to their fullest capacity.
For sure. And I want to come back to your writing process. So when you're just because speaking on this, because I feel like that title, Old Enough to Know Better, that says a lot.
Yeah.
That says a lot. Where did that come from?
It was hilarious. I was writing with one of my favorite co-writers in Nashville. His name's Steve Dean. And Steve's I'd say an American uncle to me. He's amazing. I always get in there and tell him all the gossip of what's happening in my life, and we write songs about it. And I was telling him, it was the week after July 4th weekend, and I was reflecting on a weekend of bad decisions, and he goes, Lily, you're really old enough to know better than this. I was like, I know, Steve, but I don't ever want to be old enough to know better. And he's like, that is our title. We are going to run with that, and wrote the song in 2 hours. walked out of that room and I knew that was going to be the title of this project. I was over there to write a project and it kind of just sealed it up once it was finished. I was like, this ties it all together. This is going to be the title track.
For sure. And when you're writing, do you find like you've had to learn, of course, over this time, like you said, through COVID and everything, is it like a spiritual process for you to write, or is it a logical, or is it an emotional?
I think it depends on the person you're writing with. If it's personal, sometimes, absolutely. If I'm writing with someone who's I think it's an energy thing. Writing very much is an energetic thing. If you're writing with somebody who's very, I guess, structured in their process, where's our verse, where's our this, where's our that, I think it kind of takes away from that. But a lot of the people I love writing with, in Nashville, obviously religion's a big thing too, really believe it comes from, the universe and God, and that's a strong belief system for them. And it's just throwing any idea that comes to you. And I think that's the cool thing about it when you're in a co-writing session, is throwing any idea that comes to you. If it sounds silly, just say it, because they might have an idea that's going to work with that too. I think there's a craft to it, but I think, honestly, a lot of it is also just a matter of being at the right place at the right time and just be willing to explore what's coming to you.
Yeah, for sure. That's good to know. It's good to have that conversation.
Is it for you?
Yeah, it's all different things. Yeah, it's all it comes from always experience for me. Like some songs I'll write the first half when I'm going through something, and I won't get the second half till after I've gone through the closure of that experience, right? Like a breakup, you might write.
That's true, actually. I like that.
I've written straight after the breakup, but then the conclusion of the song might not come till 6 months later after you've healed from that breakup. So it might be like, you might be like angry. Yeah. But then the last bridge might come out as, but you know what? I found myself in the end. Yeah. And I found out I didn't even need you. So then it concludes it. And that's the beauty of rewriting too. You can always go back and change it if you have a perspective shift, which I think is a really cool thing too. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I love that. I actually do really love country music, because I think it's really good storytelling. One of my favorite artists is this guy Maoli. He's from Hawaii. Okay. He's a country reggae artist. I know. And I'm like, I love reggae. Yeah. So to see reggae country, these are two great genres of storytelling. And he's huge, he's like massive, does stadium shows and everything. But he gets all these country artists and all these reggae artists in his crowds. And I'm like, cool. Genius. Yeah, right. Country reggae. You don't hear that happening very often, but I'm going to have to get his details off you after and go check him out. For sure. And he comes out, he's full Hawaiian looking guy, but he wears country the full country hat. Yeah, and it's like, he's got a song, I can't remember the lyrics, so don't quote me on it, but it goes, the lyrics that I do remember is, I like to sing country, so I'll drink a little whiskey, but I also like my reggae, so I'll smoke a bit of weed, and it's that's it, Cool guy, yeah. Gets it going. Really pushing the boundaries though, that's really great. I love it, yeah. But he's pushing the boundaries in a real big way, and he's, just watching him grow over the years as well. But it's good to see, that's why I love, country's really coming out on top, and I know why, because it's really good storytelling, It's really, really good. Like some of this country songs, they just hit ya, and you just go, wow. Like Brad Paisley, I love Brad Paisley. And he's got a song called Tennessee Whiskey. Not Tennessee Whiskey, that's not him. Whiskey Lullaby. Okay. Hits ya. Okay. Hits ya. That's the thing about Nashville as well. I think because songwriting is such a real job, I feel like I've very much been pushed to be more authentic in my writing and more genuine and more honest and more real. And I'd write a song, but I'd, keep out little details I didn't want to mention. If I thought it was embarrassing that I was sad or something, I'd keep that out of it. But being and collaborating with those writers in Nashville have pushed me to really just lean into it. Exactly, because if you want to relate with someone and connect over a song, that's the best way to do it. I think, honestly, in an artist's position, my job is to give a song to someone who's going through something and make them feel connected, make them feel heard. Exactly. Yeah. And I can't do that unless I'm fully authentic. And even if it means putting your pride out on the line, you've got to do that, because that's my job as an artist. Some musicians, I listen to the vulnerability in it. There's a guy I listen to, his name's Narco Bear, and he's got the song and the lyrics in there, they just so vulnerable, and you're like, how are you singing about this? Beautiful. It's so, but real serious, like he was born from rape, and he says this in a song, but in a happy song. What is this? Yeah. And people are like dancing along, and he goes, yeah, I was born from rape, but that's okay. And I'm like, wow, whoa. Yeah. But you don't even hear it. If you do it right, you can get that information and without it rocking you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
So fascinating.
it is like it is, you know, and I want to know, like, in your journey, realizing that you are 18, so you are in the younger category of musicians coming through the industry. What sort of challenges have you faced? Do you face a lot of like age discrimination, I'm going to say, or anything like that?
I wouldn't say discrimination. I wouldn't even say, it's probably bad wording, but like a lack of respect in a way as well. That's terrible wording, but I think being so young coming into the industry, there's that perception of you haven't done your time, and how could you have achieved this at 18 because at 17 because I've been doing it for 20 years, which I totally get. And I think as well, it's just that journey of bridging that gap as well. I came into the industry at like 13, mind you. So there's this perception of me as a kid. I was there when I was 13 with my parents, and I'm an adult, so I can, do adult things and, hang out. It's obviously getting through that just perception wise, but also, I guess it's that battle of, do you belong to be here? How do you belong to be here? I've, gone to, I guess I'm wording this terribly, but there's
just word it. Just be
there's your
vulnerable as you need.
There's like your things things you need to tick off on a list. Sometimes like industry perception. You need to go to this festival, need to play this one, need to play that one, and you need to tick that off to actually achieve things or to be eligible to be on a festival lineup or to be eligible for a competition. And I think as someone who's entered the scene, obviously I couldn't do half those festivals because I was in high school and that couldn't happen. But if you haven't done that, then you're not worthy of being here. That's totally false. People just have different circumstances and people have different backgrounds. Maybe I've had more success on social media. Other people have. You see that in all these different ways. You see artists coming through who have been thrown on a tour as a support slot and are doing amazing things. And then they're getting all these opportunities. But the industry has this perception of, they're an upstart because they've just, been given something like that. And I think that's a real thing that's just... because it's such a business of dreams and people take it so personally, I think people's opinions of you and people are kind of entitled to have such strong opinions because it is not just a career kind of thing. It's a really big thing for everyone because it's like their passion, it's everything they want to do. So more than anything, I guess it's just navigating that and the way, people perceive you, the way people think if you're worthy of an opportunity or if you were handed that opportunity, even if you fought for it, sometimes they don't appreciate that. But yeah. I get that too. I'll
tell you what, you must have some good advisors because you're much more wiser than the average. I mean, maybe, I don't know, I don't talk to much 18-year-olds. Maybe you're just all wise now.
Maybe
there's something in the water that made you're really age really
wise, yeah, but thank you.
No, but like the wordings and the perceptions really a mature perception. It's not like I want to be a superstar. You're speaking from something that really I think other 18-year-olds who tune into this podcast need to really listen. Is that it feels like you're not being swayed by outside perceptions, like you've found the center in yourself that goes, no, these don't matter. What matters is the music, the song, because that's what I'm picking up from what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is true. This is true, and it's something that I speak with real veteran musicians. Like we've had some people on that chair who have been doing 30 years in the industry,
Yeah.
You're on par with those people.
That's the biggest compliment ever. Thank you.
Well, it's just what it is.
Thank you.
Because it's sort of like you've nailed it on the head. Yeah, you're right. And don't get swayed. And what better way than understanding that? Don't get dragged away by someone's dream, by someone saying, hey, I've got this opportunity that's, I'm sure you got a few opportunities before you took the first, the big one. Because there's always someone out there. I've been a muso. Someone's always knows someone.
Yeah.
Someone's always got an uncle. Come on.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's sort of like you must have learnt a lot in that last few years.
Gosh, yeah. I think it's fair play anyway. If someone gets thrown on a tour opening for a massive artist, good for them. That's wonderful. If someone has an uncle, if you had this same opportunity, I would run with it too. I would use those connections. All you can really do is just, focus on your craft, work as hard as you can, and fight for any opportunity, and it will come to you at your due time. And it's just making the most of
See, there's another one. Yeah. You're just dropping the pearls here. Like, whoa. It's so good. Like, no, I'm serious as well, because it's sort of like, it'll work on your craft. It'll come to you in your due time. Like you said before, prepare preparation. If you're not prepared and you get on the stage in front of 10,000 people, you're just going to make a fool of yourself.
You are.
And that's it. Your opportunity will be gone because you rushed it. It's like, don't rush it. You know what I mean? It's, if you've ever cooked, you know, if you rush cooking, you'll burn the food or you'll overcook it. Or
not going to be good.
You know, it's not going to be good.
No. That's like what one of my mentors says to me, because the industry is so changing forever. It's always make a plan, but prepare to change it. And it's like you can set in like some rough guidelines of where you see yourself headed, you know, where you want to play, etc. But opportunity is always going to come, and it comes last minute often. So be prepared to shift ship when it does. So
yeah. And when you do get these opportunities and everything, so you've said you've got a mentor. So do you come back to the mentor, or are you like coming back to do you go back to your dad, or are you going back to the management? Obviously you got management. Yeah. Like, is it a process? Do you just go to management, or are you going to your dad and then management, or are you going to management then dad? Like, how does it work when you get an opportunity? How do you talk it out? How do you hash it out?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I think my dad's someone I know who's always going to have my back through everything. I love my team and I trust them more than anything, but I think my dad's always going to be that person for me. So I never make a call on anything without talking to him about it, which is great. But my mentors too, if I have a question and I think I could get some advice from them and just want their opinion, I will 100% call them. I'm lucky to have some great believers in me who will answer the phone every time I call them. I'm like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on this? I just don't know if it sits right with me. Can I send you a contract? Can I send you an agreement? Do you think this is worthwhile doing? And often they'll just give you really honest and raw advice, which I love. Yeah. Also, other artists in the industry, reaching out to them and saying, hey, look, like I know you've played a gig like this in the past. How did you find it? Do you think it was worthwhile? Like, even if it's going to be an expensive gig to play, stuff like that. Just honestly reaching out to people, you'd be more surprised like how willing they are to help. I think they've been in their shoes and they know your shoes before. They know if they had the right advice, they'd get there a lot quicker. And a lot of people are willing to support you because of that, which I'm so grateful for. But if you can really make the most of it, it's totally the best way to do it.
Cool. And we're going to go into this other section where we talk a bit more hands-on with some stuff about the industry. But before I do go in there, is there any misconceptions about making it in the industry that you'd like to clear up with the average person? Like that they think, I want to release a song and become famous overnight. Like, is there any misconceptions you'd like to clear up?
I mean, everyone has their own definition of making it. Like, if your definition is to just do music full time, then good on you if you can pull that off. Some people want to, you know, sell out tours. Some people want to have 1 million streams. It depends what your goal is. But I think as well, like, the music industry is not something you can just put a method on and just expect it to happen. It's not like there's a framework for how it's going to work. It's always going to change, and there's so many different pathways to do it. So don't think if anyone tells you they can make you famous, it's a lie. You just have to be ready to.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. Don't get baited.
No. It's an ever changing industry, and there's so many different ways to go about it. And if you trust your gut and do the right thing, and you're a good person doing it, there's no reason you can't make it happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So the next sort of thing I want to talk on is you know, I mentioned earlier we're developing this app, right, for the industry. And I don't want to go too much into details. I want to get some information. So I believe you've got three main people in the industry, right? Okay. You have venues, musicians, and fans. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what makes the music industry what it is.
Sure.
Right? And you've probably seen in Nashville, you've probably got that trinity in a lot more harmony than somewhere like Brisbane or Gold Coast, and sometimes, right? Like when I say harmony, I mean they show up. Sure. The venues show up. Like, what's it like when you go to a venue in Nashville? Like, I'm sure it's like it's on. I
mean, different venues are different venues. Some are cover band venues, and that's, again, a whole scene. It's all tipping over there too, which is different. There's no guarantee or anything. But there's venues like the Bluebird Cafe, which, oh my goodness, if you have to experience it if you ever get to Nashville, because people will line up for 3 hours to get into the Bluebird Cafe to just hear songs by songwriters, and it's the coolest thing ever, just the amount of dedication to that. Even in America, like, I'm sure it happens here too, but maybe I just haven't seen it. There are fans who will follow artists on tour. Like, they will make their life to follow that artist around America for a year, and they'll be at every single show. It's just crazy. So there's definitely a big fan culture over there. I'm sure it's developing here, and maybe I just haven't come across it, but I haven't seen that kind of dedication here.
Well, look,
locally.
I think it's funny about here is I've been around a bit. I've sat on some pretty crazy conversations with some pretty crazy people, and this one conversation keeps coming up is you can't make it in Australia. So this is other people's opinions, not mine. But the one thing that kept coming up was anyone who's made it, they've had to go overseas. Then they come back to Australia. Then Australia goes, they've made it, now I'll come. And that's really interesting for me. And it's like AC/DC, they had to go over to Europe. And I think that needs to shift. That's what I think, right? I think people need to see the value they've got here. Sure. It's really unfair because it's like perception, it's sad. When you get this amazing artist here, then they make it there, then they go, now you're successful. Yeah. And it's like, but she was here or he was here, you know? But anyway, so what I want to talk about is that relationship between venues, musicians and fan bases, and how we can improve that in Australia on a general term, not niche venues. Because here in Australia, you might go to a couple. But I feel like when you go to the States or when you go to Europe or when you go to, it's embedded in culture to just support musicians. Like it's so much different, right? Like if you go anywhere, we've spoken to people literally where you're sitting who have done Germany and that, and they said, you know, Germany, they love you. Yeah. But here they just don't even care. You know, I spoke to Cy Hanlon, and he was like saying when he went to the States, they would just cheer you on. Like every single song, they're like, yeah. And he's like, here, they just... don't even care, you know. So I guess that's where I wanted to lead. I'm leading into this question here of first let's focus on the venues. Like you said, you've spoken about a venue in Nashville. Have you played at these venues before?
I played some showcases.
So you as an artist, right, what makes you show up your best at a venue? If a venue like say treats you like crap and everything's out of whack and the system's not working, does that like, or as opposed to going to a venue, they look after you and you feel like I'm ready to perform here? Like what's something for you that matters as an artist to be able to bring your A game to a venue?
I feel like I'm repeating myself here a little bit, but honestly the respect thing and an appreciation that what you do is valuable. I think you can't ask for much more than that. If it's just honestly encouragement and saying we're so excited to have you here, there's nothing better. I feel like as an artist, you kind of feed off of energy of people. And if the crowd is not digging your set, you know, you're going to be, oh, what am I doing wrong? Is the sound bad? It's, you know, bad sound on a show. You get insecure about how it's sounding and everything. But if you're supported from the start, you can absolutely in a great position to go in and dive in and put on a great show for the audience there. Yeah,
for sure. And leading up to a gig, like when you talk about preparation before, do you like to have communication actively leading up to a gig from venues? Like they tell you all this information, they tell you this is your load-in time, this is your best place for parking, this is your... My favorite venues are the ones that like overload you with information and the ones who don't make you feel stupid for calling them and asking for more questions. And they just appreciate you trying to make the gig the best it can be. And for me, if I'm calling you, it's because I want that gig to be perfect and I want to give the best experience to the audience. If I can call and say, hey, like just wondering, you know, what microphone are you using? Do you have a wireless? Is this accessible? When can I load in by? And them understanding that the reason I'm doing that is not to be difficult. It's to genuinely put on the best show for their patrons, to want them to put, you know, buy more drinks and have a great time with you guys. I think just having an understanding of that's where we're coming from and going about it the best way, knowing that's my perspective. And if you have like your input-output list, it's great, right? Like I love it when I go to a venue and like weeks before they've given me a whole outlay. That's perfect. It's so good, right? And they give you all the contacts for where to if you want to contact press, and they give you like all the links, hashtags, @. These are all the partners. You're like, the shows, absolute legends. It's like, but then some venues they don't care about that, and you're like, I feel like it's just me. Yeah. It's a team effort. It's a team effort. When I come in, my goal is to put on a good show for the audience, but also do the best thing I can for the venue. I know if I get more people there, I'm making them more money, and they're, you know, supporting me by having me play music. So it's a team effort. If you can share it, if I can share it, if we can work together to make this happen, it's the better way. It's better when you win together than win solo. So for sure. Cool. Thank you for that answer. And the other thing I want to focus on is musicians. Like, look, these are really strange questions. I get it, no, but awesome. I think this is about how we can unify as an industry to make the industry better. And you know what I hate? I don't hate things, but what I don't some things is I find musicians are the ones that let down the industry more than anything. And I find like sometimes you can walk in on the back of another musician who destroyed a mic and he's yelled at the engineer, and you're coming in all fresh, and that engineer treats you like crap because of this other muso. And he goes, sorry, man, the other muso just yelled at everyone. And it's like, you're letting us down because it's a hard industry.
Yeah.
We need all of us to show up. So I know it's really could be controversial / difficult conversation to have because their musicians should be our peers. But let's just talk about musicians as a whole, not individuals.
Okay. Are you talking like band players or artists as well?
Other artists. People who can, how can we lift the industry together? Like, it's a team effort.
It is.
If I show up really good and professional and on time, and you show up really good and professional on time, venue's going to love music. They're going to be inspired to have musicians. I know a guy, I won't say any names. He actually was an old friend of mine. He charged a stupid amount of money to play, and he only knew 4 songs, and one of them was Wonderwall, and he got the lyrics wrong. That venue stopped putting musicians on after him. And I went, you just took a whole venue out because you lied, cost that venue a lot of money, and now they've lost trust in people like me who's going to show up, right? So do you have anything out there to say to musicians, like when you show up, like come on, you know, we all rely on each other to bring it. Do you have anything that... I know it's a difficult conversation, but you don't have to as well. You can say, I choose not to say it. That's okay.
No, give me a minute to think about it. I think it's about having an understanding that this is a full-time job for so many people. I know different people have different structures of how they work. Some treat this as a side hustle while they do their other job. Some people have a side hustle to support their music. But for so many people, this is such an important thing. And it's more than even just playing the gig for money. It's about playing the gig for the love of it. And it's something that they have as an outlet. And they need to do these gigs to, you know, feel full, to feel excited, to, you know, feel like they have something to live for. And having a respect that that's such an important thing for someone, and your actions can really compromise that. I think as well, just honestly, just having respect for other musicians in the industry. I have so much respect for anyone who's out there and hustling for their career. I know it's not always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes people are going to ignore you. Sometimes people are going to, you know, dislike the music you're putting out or anything. Yeah. But if I can respect that they're putting themselves out there and really hustling for what they want to do, and have an appreciation for that too. Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you.
Nailed it. It's I just bring these conversations up because I think it's accountability is really important, that people understand we all rely on each other. Like, I literally rely on you to play it cool. I understand that, you know, you might have a bad day and stuff, but it's not the venue's fault. It's not. No. It's, you know, you got to leave your baggage at the door and come in and realize if you want to be a professional, you have to. There's a responsibility. And if you can't uphold that responsibility, then you shouldn't be in the industry. If you're complaining to everyone, then don't be in it. There's a quote I like. It's about, you know, I guess about drinking. If you want to go out the night before, you can, but you get up at 6 a.m. the next morning and do what you were supposed to do. I think it's about whatever happened leading up to that, you get up and do what you're supposed to do. I don't care if you went through a breakup. That's no one else's business. You get on stage and you perform like you're meant to perform. Yeah. And it's just... And channel it. Yeah, you're a musician. You have the one thing that people don't have. Is you can channel that. If you had a breakup, like, cry. The audience will hold you. They will hold you, you know. Like, I've been on stages after some pretty serious, you know, one in particular, I don't mean to make it like this, but my mum went badly in hospital in the break of my gig. So I had my break, and then my family said, Mum's on her way out, and she died the next day. I'm so sorry. Rest in peace, Mum. But I had to channel that. Because there was people having 21st birthdays, and I had 2 hours left, and I'm like, I can't. No. Pulled your head in, and I went up. I asked, look, this is what's happened. I need a shot of your finest whiskey. Yep. Thank you. Because that's what I needed at the time. You know, I don't endorse alcoholism, but look, you know, you got to do what you got to do. Absolutely. You know. And I just went boom, jumped straight into it, and at the other end of it, I got to go home and let it all out when I got home, you know? So and people embrace the honesty and vulnerability of that too. I mean, they love it actually more. Absolutely. If something's going on and you tell them, they're going to get behind you. And honestly, that's the beauty of this industry is I could, if I'm going through a hard time, I can tell the audience and they're going to hype me up and make it feel a lot better, which is lovely. And I think even more than that, you get to hear their stories. You don't know what they're going through. They might need to hear that song, and you get to talk to them after the set and hear all about it. Well, and on that note, like speaking about people, that's the third part of this trinity is how audiences hold and support you as an artist. Again, you've played here, you've played Nashville. Like, what's the difference with how they show up?
I honestly, I know you were talking before about how Australian artists don't think that there's much of a platform here to fully grow and make it, but I have found such a support system here in Australia as well. I feel so grateful to see the things people will do for an artist. People will drive 5-6 hours to see a show sometimes, which I think is insane. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see the support for what I'm doing artistically. I'm, again, putting out very vulnerable songs there, things I'm going through, things that could be a bit embarrassing to admit. And when people respond to that with embrace and love, I think that's just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But in America as well, I mean, I didn't really perform too much in America. I'm yet to kind of explore that a bit more, but I found kind of similarity, but also an appreciation for my culture because I come from so far away, and I guess a fascination to learn about it. And where does she come from? What's she all about? Where's her accent? Can you just keep speaking for me so I can hear it? So across the board, honestly, just a response of love. And obviously some people don't appreciate what you're doing, but when they do, it's just the Mecca. It's beautiful.
So it's nice when people like show up nice and they show that love to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even just taking the respect to, listen, and there's so many at festivals as well. There's 20 million sets they could go and watch, or they can choose to come and watch your set.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm always grateful for people who do that, or people who, give me their Friday nights, come out and watch. There's a million things you can do on a Friday night. And when they make that choice, it's my job to show up, do it properly, and just, give them a good old show.
Yeah. It's thanks so much for getting on. Like, I know these are really strange conversations to have.
I love this. Thank you.
Yeah. Like, because as we develop this podcast, we'll speak with venue owners and we'll ask the same question. How can musicians show up better? And we'll speak to fans, because there's super fans that love going out.
There are.
So we can speak to them and say, hey, what can make your experience? I believe through these conversations that are completely about these weird industry stuff can lead to us making a much better industry. Because if we start understanding from each other's perspectives,
it's a unison.
We become, a lot more unison. So thanks for stepping into those conversations. So now we can have some bit more fun.
Perfect.
A bit more fun now. Dream collaboration.
Dream collaboration, goodness me, honestly, probably Keith Urban.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like my sound, I always make the joke, I say I'm a female Keith Urban, sound-wise and sonically, but absolutely have looked up to him. He's one of my biggest inspirations.
Yeah, awesome. And we have a Dead Celebrities dinner.
A what?
Dead Celebrities dinner.
Oh, okay.
Who are you having dinner with? A dead celebrity.
Oh, my goodness.
And what are you going to ask them?
Dead Celebrities dinner.
Michael Jackson?
I don't know.
Johnny Cash?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm sorry. That's a
Elvis?
maybe. I look up to. Cut this little bit. Sorry. Who's a dead?
You're like, who's
celebrity?
dead? Who's alive?
Well, I would say Michael Jackson, but that's kind of controversial though, so I wouldn't want to say that. But actually, it's alright. We'll say that.
Yeah. Because then you can ask him.
Exactly. Probably Michael Jackson. I love the drive he had with his craft, and I feel like when he speaks about it, his goal was to be the best in the world at what he did. And he says it doesn't matter what you do, but just be the best at it.
Yeah.
And I feel like he had this absolute, passion to just be the best he could be at a performance and at making music. And I think that's just the most admirable thing musically. So I guess just ask him about, his journey on, did you think he did that? And what drawed you?
I don't know. When you see some of the interviews, he seemed just such an innocent person. Like, I don't know. He had a lot of power, Michael Jackson. The other side of the industry in the world, which I don't want to go down too much conspiracy stuff, but there's 27 clubs. Like, people died for no reason. It was like you wonder, but
Scary.
Without going too much that way, who knows? All you know is that everyone has this weird. You don't have to be good. Some people like Elvis done some weird stuff. People do weird stuff, but the music is what you love. Yeah. And it's like, man, come on, man. Michael Jackson's music's
top tier.
It's timeless. Like it's Quincy Jones was a big person, which he just passed away yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was
amazing.
Touched everyone from Frank Sinatra up to Kendrick Lamar, like serious stuff. Okay, cool. So that's all cool. I'll organize that little minute pull it out.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all good. And if you could describe your music and your, like, without just being country, your music essence.
Ooh, sonically, it's country pop / rock. I'd say it's kind of a fusion of the three. And lyrically and thematically, I feel like it's a very honest portrayal of someone who's just trying to figure it out, someone who's young and experiencing everything for the first time. I hope to give a voice to anyone who's doing the same thing, or I guess a sense of nostalgia to anyone who's already been there, of someone who's going through it for the first time.
Cool. And you've always wanted a Cole Clark, so you got a Cole Clark here?
I'm a Cole Clark girl,
Was that the dream? Have you always had a Cole Clark? Or?
I've had a Cole Clark for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I started on a little mini guitar that was tiny, but I had to upgrade when I grew a little bit.
Yeah. And favourite gigs, morning or night?
I can't say I play too many morning gigs, more
or
radio.
Should we say day or night?
Day or night? I think a daytime gig is great. I think a nighttime gig, obviously the crowd are a little more rowdy because they've had a few more hours in the bar, but I think a daytime gig's a great time. Everyone's often quite attentive, and there's nothing better than singing in the sun.
And favourite writing spot?
Favorite writing spot, Nashville.
Nashville?
Mm-hmm.
That's your
I
mean,
Music Row.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And your album, so that's out
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And people can, obviously we'll put some links
Thank you.
to be able to put it all out there and get it going. You can come down.
There she goes. It's available on Spotify, but I'm also selling the hard copies on my album, on my website.
Oh, there we go. Awesome. Everyone can see that, I think.
Perfect.
Awesome as.
Thank you so much.
And any advice for aspiring artists like you, that's coming through the industry? Any big advice you want to give people?
Believe in yourself, because no one else is going to if you don't believe in yourself first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool as. And you're on all your social media, so it's just all Lily Grace?
Lily Grace Live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool as. And any final messages you'd like to throw out there?
No, thank you so much for having me. This was such a wonderful chat.
Yeah. Awesome as. Thanks a lot, Lily.
Thanks, Joe.
For coming along. And yeah, we will release this soon enough, I'm sure. I don't know why I'm saying that right now, but I'm going to have to cut this out now. But yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in again to another awesome... There you are. Thanks a lot for tuning in again for another awesome podcast here where we talk about the music industry. That's been Lily Grace. Thanks a lot, Lily.